Sorry, Steve. Thanks. I call to order the regular meeting of the Mount Pleasant City Commission, Monday, April 8th, 2019. If you would, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, has the roll been called?
It has. All are present tonight.
Seeing we don't have any proclamations and presentations, we will move on to, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on to our public input section. This is a time to address anything that's on the agenda tonight. You'll have 5 minutes. Just state your name and your address. We do have a public hearing on an amendment to our Chapter 113. If you're here to talk about that, you will do so during the public hearing. So I will now open the public comment section. Anyone would like to give public comment tonight? Seeing none, I will now close the public comment section. We'll move on to receipt of petitions and communications. Manager Ridley, would you like to go over those?
We just have 3 items for you this evening. The first one is the report on pending items, and I'm sure since you noticed that most of it is in yellow, you noticed that it's been reprioritized based on our work session discussion of March 25th. You have the February minutes of the Parks and Recreation Commission, and then you have the electronic version of the 2018 annual report, which highlights some of the significant accomplishments that were accomplished throughout the city in 2018. And actually today we received the printed copies of that. So at your computer tonight, we also gave you a printed copy if you want to share that with any of your family members or friends and neighbors.
Now we move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are the items that have an asterisk next to them if you're looking at the agenda. Are there any items that would need to be taken off the consent agenda tonight? Seeing none, Manager Ridley, would you like to go over those items?
Yes, the items we're suggesting tonight are approval of your minutes of both your regular meeting of March 25th and your special meeting of March 30th. Then we have 3 bids for you this evening. The first is our annual street overlay bid. You'll notice that we have various streets throughout the city that are planned for overlay this year. And for the benefit of the viewing audience, I would like to list off those streets so that individuals know. We're looking at doing overlays on Bruce Street from Henry to the dead end, Canal Street, Green Banks from Canal to the dead end, Mill Street between Oak and Walnut, Walnut Street from Mill Street to the dead end, Locust Street between Oak and Pine, and Maxwell Street between Lyons and Upton. And in addition, we'll be overlaying the asphalt pathway that is on the south side of Preston Street along the high school area. And so for all of those streets in that pathway this year, we had 1 bidder, which was Central Asphalt, so we're recommending award of the contract to Central Asphalt for $222,435. Our second bid this evening is for sidewalk replacement of various sidewalks throughout the city. We had 4 bidders who responded this year, and we're recommending the low qualified bidder of Lakeshore Construction at a price of $45,779. And the last bid is for crack sealing, which is the annual maintenance we do on our streets and parking lots. And we're recommending the low qualified bidder of asphalt restoration of $40,590. The other item on the consent calendar tonight is for the receipt of the capital improvement plan. As you know, the city charter requires the city manager to submit the proposed plan to you at the first meeting in April. So we'll have a presentation of a high-level overview of that at your next meeting, and we have 2 work sessions that are tentatively scheduled for you to discuss it. So tonight you're just receiving the plan, And we're also recommending that you set the public hearing to obtain public input for Tuesday, March 28th. Tonight, you're also receiving the sidewalk snow report. You'll recall that last fall, we held a public hearing on a proposed ordinance to require snow clearing of all sidewalks in the city. And after holding that public hearing, there was a motion to postpone action on it until a work session discussion could be held. And then following that work session discussion, a motion was presented on November 12th that asked staff to research some additional alternatives and additional information that would help in making this decision. So the report on all of those options, plus a recap of some of the prior research that was done, as well as all of the public input that you've received over the last couple years, was included in your packet. And then tonight, because of the number of maps on it, we gave you a printed copy on the dais so that you can see those maps more easily. No action is expected on this report this evening, and as you know, we have a tentative work session scheduled to discuss that on May 13th. And then lastly, we have approval of payrolls and warrants.
Commissioner Kulik.
Move to approve.
Vice Mayor Gillis.
Second.
Commissioner Kulik.
I may have misheard. What was the date for the public hearing for the capital improvement plan?
I said Tuesday, May 28th.
I thought you said March 28th. I was going to say
Oh.
that couldn't have been March.
If I said March, I meant May.
Thank you.
So it's Tuesday, May 28th. I apologize for that.
Any other discussion? Commissioner Ling.
I just would like to mention that we always set that public hearing on the capital improvement plan, and we very seldom have very many people come to that public hearing. But actually, in terms of the money that the city spends that they have discretion over, a lot of really important decisions are made in that capital improvement budget about streets and sidewalks and building projects, potentially snow removal issues. And so I would really encourage people who are interested in the decisions that the city makes about spending money, that you can find that online, where the capital improvement, proposed capital improvement plan is online. I'd really encourage people to take a look at that. And then if you have questions or concerns about it, to attend that public hearing, because I think that's one public hearing where people can really make a difference if they really have strong feelings one way or the other about the way in which that discretionary money is being spent, mostly discretionary money is being spent.
Seeing no other comments, Vice Mayor Gillis.
Just a quick question. Why are we having that on a Tuesday?
Because of Memorial Day, our regular meeting is moved to Tuesday, May 28th, because of Memorial Day that week.
Is on the 27th.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll move to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the consent agenda? Or, sorry.
Yep, what you do.
Yeah.
Approving of,
Yeah.
aye.
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 Those opposed? That passes unanimously. Tonight we have a public hearing. Item number 6 is a public hearing on an ordinance to amend Chapter 113 of the City Code regarding telecommunications companies within the public right-of-way. Nancy, would you like to go over that?
Yes, when we introduced this ordinance amendment 2 weeks ago, we mentioned that the Public Act 365 was passed by the state legislature late last year, and that new law put some limits on controls that the city can put or can have for small cell wireless facility companies. So our ordinance was drafted by the city attorney to ensure compliance with this new state law, so that to the extent that we can regulate the usage of our right-of-ways for those small cell facilities, that we would be able to do so by having the ordinance in place. Similar to the Metro Act, which regulates telecommunications industries, some of the timelines under the state law are fairly short, so the ordinance authorizes staff to review the permits according to the standards and then approve or deny the permit as outlined in the ordinance. So after holding the public hearing tonight, we recommend approval of the ordinance as has been drafted by the city attorney.
At this time, I will open the public hearing on item number 6. If you would like to make public comment on this, please come up to the podium, state your name and your address. Seeing no one come forward, I will now close the public hearing. Vice Mayor Gillis.
I move to amend the ordinance for Chapter 113 of the City Code regarding telecommunication companies within the public right-of-way.
Commissioner Kulik.
Support.
Discussion. The city is forced by law, by the state law, to comply with the legislature's decision to change the law. But I think there's some things that the public should be aware of. This law really restricts our input on the use of our right-of-ways, and especially will impact small municipalities, villages, with the way that they can charge for permit fees. There's not a standard permit fee that is described for states or for municipalities and local villages across the state, and really puts a real strain on some of these small municipalities to have attorneys and an engineering firm really look at the impacts of what these small node cells could really have on either aesthetics or other infrastructure issues. So although we have to comply, I really don't appreciate the legislature's move here to really force our hand, and really gives us very little say in way of how we regulate these small node cells. So, Commissioner Ling.
Thank you for making those comments. I don't know if you also went to this program, but I was just at the Municipal League Conference, and at one of the general sessions, one of the main speakers was a woman named Kim Hotto, who is the director of Local Solutions Support Center, and it's a national organization that is dealing with exactly what the mayor was talking about, the extent to which more and more states are taking away any control from local communities in areas that sometimes really have an effect on the quality of life. So I'm also voting for it under protest because we have no choice. We have to follow the law, but I think it is very unfortunate that even more local control is being taken away.
Any other discussion on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Pass votes unanimously. Moving on to item number 8 is to consider an application for the outdoor dining license from the Brass Cafe. Mayor Really?
Yes, as you know, we have a policy that allows for outdoor dining and more specifically patios in the downtown area as a way to increase the vibrancy of our downtown and to create a better sense of place during appropriate weather conditions. The policy allows staff to approve the applications if it's a repeat application in which there's no changes to the layout or in which there's been 3 or less complaints in the prior year. Before you this evening, though, is a new application for this year for consideration, which the new applications come to the City Commission the first year, and this application is from the Brass Cafe at 128 South Main. And this request is for an outdoor dining patio, which although the specific address for the Brass Cafe is on Main Street, the patio would be located on Michigan Street, which is the side of the Brass Cafe, and it would be just west of the bump out area at the corner. The application has been reviewed by staff according to the policy and is recommending approval of that application for you this evening. And I should mention it will utilize just 1 parking space on Michigan Street.
Commissioner Kulik.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Toles. Support. Any other discussion or any discussion? Commissioner Kulik.
The sidewalk cafes that we've approved over the last several years downtown, I think, have added to the vibrancy of our downtown, so I will be supporting this. And I don't think that the loss of 1 parking space is going to be the end-all of the collapse of our downtown.
Seeing no other discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. unanimously. Right. Moving on to item number 9, consider the State of Michigan My Deal Extended Purchasing Program for road salt.
Yes, we actually have 2 items for you this evening related to this, and I'll cover them both in my explanation, and then you can make the decision as to whether you want to take both items as one motion or whether you would prefer to separate it into 2. The first item is that we identified that last year we had an oversight in our process and did not receive the approval from the City Commission to commit to our advance purchase for our seasonal backup of road salt. And so we've already ordered 500 tons of road salt that have been delivered this year since January 1st. 400 of the tons have been delivered, and the other 100 tons is in the process of being delivered. And so what we're asking you, we've corrected our process so that that won't happen again, but what we're asking you to do tonight is to confirm after the fact the purchase of those 500 tons at a price of just over $75 per ton. We've always purchased the road salt through the State of Michigan My Deal Extended Purchasing Program because they by far have the best rate because of the amount of salt that's being purchased across the state under that contract. And the amount that we've purchased so far this year is within the budgeted amount of our major and local streets. The second item that is before you this evening is to make our commitment to purchase the road salt for next winter season. And I hope it truly is next winter season. I hope we don't have to use any more this year. I'm being optimistic this evening. But the My Deal program requires commitments early in the year so that they can send it out for bid because their prices are dependent on how much each community is committing to purchase. And so it's one of those strange things where we're committing to purchase without knowing what the price is. But because of this is the way this commodity works to make sure we get the best pricing. Excuse me. For probably the last 4 or 5 years, we haven't had to take delivery of road salt during the fall of the year because we've had enough inventory on hand. So this will be the first year in 4 or 5 years where we actually need to take delivery this fall because of last winter's weather. Even though we've had some delivered this year, we've used a lot of it already, and so our inventory will not be high enough to get us through December. So we're recommending that we make a commitment to take another delivery this fall of 500 tons of road salt, and then as a seasonal backup, if we need it after January 1st, I'm sorry, I misspoke. We need to deliver 800 tons this fall, and then as a seasonal backup after January 1st, depending on our inventory, potentially another 500 tons next year. This commitment will require a budget amendment this year since we will be taking a delivery this fall. And once we know the actual pricing, we'll bring the budget amendment to you at that time. But we're confident that adequate funds exist in our major and local street fund balances to be able to cover that.
Commissioner Kulik.
Move to approve last year's approval and this year's commitment.
Support.
Commissioner Kulik.
Is there a reason why this wasn't just on the consent calendar?
I didn't recommend it be put on the consent calendar because of our oversight from last year. I thought we should have more have a lengthier discussion about it is why. So I didn't even recommend it on the consent calendar.
How many tons can we stuff in the salt barn?
Well, if we get all that salt and it doesn't snow next year, then we won't have room for everything.
That'd be okay.
Be a good problem to have.
It'll be another budget amendment. Commissioner Toles.
As a municipal price there, that's a pretty good price at $75 a ton. As a private contractor, we were about 120, and it automatically went from 70 to 120, and we have to order during the summer in order to get our allotment, and then we were cut by 75% of our allotment and had to take the increase.
Any other discussion? I think we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 10 is consider a contract with Kook Property Services LLC for assessing services.
Yes, in 2017, we recommended a contract with Cookie Property Services to provide assessing services for the city of Mount Pleasant upon the retirement of our city assessor. We later amended the contract to include services that were previously contracted for residential field inspections as well. Over those 2 years, we've found that the process has worked well for the city and for our taxpayers, and the current contract expires with Cookie Property Services on April 30th of this year. So we're recommending a new contract or an extension of the contract at the same pricing for both services, effective May 1st, 2019. The only difference in the contract would be that it would be set up more similar to our attorney services contracts that automatically renew unless we give notice to cancel the contract. And the same thing, Cookie Property Services could give us notice to cancel the contract as well. So the contract would automatically renew, and starting in 2020, the price would increase by the Consumer Price Index. And so we're recommending you authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the contract with Cookie Property Services, and this year's total price would be $85,000 for the year.
Commissioner Kulik,
So moved.
Commissioner Ling,
Second.
any discussion? Commissioner Toles.
I have a question. Do we plan on hiring an assessor, or are we just going to independently subcontract this out?
Yeah, we have not had an assessor since April of 2017, an on-staff assessor since April of 2017. So we would not be filling that position under this contract either.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 7-1.
6-1.
6-1.
6-1. Sorry. Yeah. Item number 11, consider appointment of Chris Cookie through Cookie Services, Property Services LLC as city assessor.
Yeah, the city charter identifies the city assessor as one of the administrative positions that the city commission should have a majority vote to appoint. So based on your prior action, we recommend you extend the appointment of Chris Cookie as the official city assessor.
Commissioner Ling,
I move that we appoint Chris Cookie as our assessor.
Commissioner
So moved.
any discussion? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
6-1. I believe that brings us to announcements on city-related issues and new business. I have one. For those, most of you in the audience were here for our kickoff for our master plan public outreach today. But there are events all of this week, including tomorrow morning. There are tours of Mission Street area, the North Industrial area in our historic downtown. There will be workshops through the afternoon starting at 1 o'clock here in City Hall. And then we'll have a pub crawl at 7 p.m. That's going to meet at the Bird. And then on Wednesday, there will be workshops here back in City Hall in the morning. And you can come into City Hall and see what McKenna will be working on in their progress. Same as for Thursday. And then I believe a final wrap-up is Thursday evening to kind of kick off where the master plan will go from here after public input. the most amount of public input that we can get is really important. This is going to be a document that is really going to shape how we plan for our city and make decisions. Obviously, we'll be updating it before 2050, but I think that looking 31 years ahead is really forward-looking and a real asset, and it just sort of speaks to the professionalism of our staff and the outlook of our community to say, hey, we're not going to look what's right in front of us, but we're going to look to see what the future really holds and how we can get there successfully as a community. Is there any other announcements tonight? Vice Mayor Gillis.
Please come out and join us sometime this week and give some input. We do redo our master plan or take a look at our master plan every 5 years. I think that's by state statute. But this will be something that's going to be a complete rehaul of the master plan, not an update or a review. So, but by state statute, we have to do this every 5 years. So I also want to comment, I've been in communication with business owners downtown about the pedestrian sign in the center of Broadway, in the center of the street in front of Gray's Furniture Store. Several times I have seen that pedestrian sign to yield to pedestrians knocked over in the streets, pulled off to the side, put by the stop sign, anywhere around that area, more likely not where it's supposed to be. I have also myself pulled over on the side of the road to pull it out of the lane of traffic because somebody went by and knocked it over. Most of the business owners are people that are familiar with downtown. I can see shaking their heads because they've seen that happen too. I have the real concerns that this signage in the middle of the street has become more of a traffic hazard than it is for pedestrian safety. It has now become a hazard to vehicles that are moving down Broadway, either to the east or the west. So I would like some reevaluation if that is doing what it's supposed to do in the middle of the street when it is in the middle of the street, because there's a lot of times it is not where it's supposed to be. And we might be able to use another avenue for pedestrian safety, which would be asking law enforcement to pay particular attention to those areas along Broadway from Main Street to Franklin, to slow the traffic down, to have people yield to pedestrians rather than have that traffic hazard that is more of a problem for vehicles and pedestrians the way it's being used now, because it is not located in an area where it's always there. It's not cemented in. It can be moved by anybody that walks across the crosswalk. People that think it's funny to pull it over, knock it over, pull it over to the side of the street. So it's really not doing what it's intended to do, and I would hope that we could find another avenue to increase pedestrian safety without using a traffic hazard.
Is there any more public announcements, new business? Seeing none, we'll move into our second and last public comment section of the night. This is a time for anybody to give any public comment on agenda or non-agenda items, any city-related business. Just state your name and your address.
Richard Swinglehurst, 700 North Isabella Road. I would just like to thank you for the unanimous vote for the Brass Cafe, for the outdoor patio, and trying to do something and keep our downtown to be unique, because that now gives us a patio from Court Street all the way over to the Michigan Street, which gives you a walk view now of patios all the way around our main central downtown. I think it'll be a good positive view. I didn't hear, other than Tony mention the fact about a parking space. I got to tell you, I certainly took that into consideration, because that parking space is probably the main parking space for the Brass Cafe's guests. But again, I outweighed the facts of the outdoor patio versus the one patio space for the summertime. And I would like to comment on Ms. Gillis' comment on that sign in the middle of the street. It is a royal pain, and it's very hard to make a left-hand turn coming around to make the turn without hitting that sign. I have to admit, I myself hit it once, had to get back out, pick it up, and put it back in. I would make my suggestion that maybe we put one on each side of the street so that it would not be in the center, and you would still see the fact and bring attention to the fact that you're supposed to stop for pedestrians in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to give public comment tonight? Seeing none, I will close the public comment section. Move to adjourn.
So moved.
I believe that was made by Commissioner Lalonde and seconded by Vice Mayor Gillis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned unanimously.